Hello, my name is Yewande. Welcome to Knitting the Blues. Thanks so much for being back here. If you're a regular viewer or you're a subscriber, thanks so much for coming back here. If you're new, welcome. My name is Yewande, as I said in the intro. I'm based in Johannesburg. I created this space to talk about my absolute love of knitting and making. I talk about my own knitting, but I also talk about the community around me and the designers around me and the yarn around me and just the space of making and just the energy that the knitting community and the crocheting and making community embodies for me. So thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you see and you hang out. Please remember to subscribe, to press a thumbs up, to hit the bell. A very dear friend of mine said, yes, I'm subscribed. I know you have 2 videos. I'm like, 2 videos? I've got more than 2 videos. Hit the bell so that whenever I post, you hear about it. I actually post every week. I like the idea of posting every Thursday night. I posted around 8:30, between 8:30 and 9. For me, because I have young kids, that's like when my 5-year-olds are asleep. And there's, it's not quite weekend, but it's Thursday evening. And I like the idea of kind of ushering us into our crafty weekend with the podcast. So that's when I post. You can always look out for those. I'm in Johannesburg, so it's 8:30 p.m. SA time. And there's also something funny. We have something in Johannesburg called Pooza Thursday. So Pooza Thursday is a whole thing. Look it up. But I also wanted to read you what it says when I looked it up. It says, Pooza Thursday is a South African tradition where people celebrate the start of the weekend by socializing and drinking, similar to a warm-up party. The term comes from the Zulu and Xhosa word Pooza, which means drink. It's a cultural practice often called Klein Vrydag, Little Friday, that signifies the desire to relax and enjoy oneself as the week winds down. So, me posting on a Thursday is my version of Pooza Thursday. Like, it's fine. Well, drink if you want while you watch the podcast, but it's just we can take the week into a different vibe. So yeah, it's Knit Thursday. I don't know. I'm trying to find a cute word. It's my nitty Pooza Thursday. So I love that. Anyway, what do I have for you today? It's a slightly different kind of episode. I'm a novelist. I've written 3 novels. I'm working on my 4th. I have a master's in creative writing from the University of Cape Town. I also have a degree as an architect, but that's another conversation. And writing is my other craft and my deep, long love, writing and reading. But so I want to talk today actually about a book, a special book, a book that is to topic. It's not off topic because it is a book about the color blue. And if you are here watching this podcast, then you must have noticed that it's called Knitting the Blues. It's called Knitting the Blues, and I explained this in my first episode. There's a link. Anyway, moving on to today's topic, blue. There's a wonderful writer. I'm going to put a little picture of her here, but don't worry because you'll be hearing from her shortly. Nana Ekua Brew-Hammond. So Nana Ekua Brew-Hammond, and I want to read a little bit about her. She is an American Ghanaian writer of novels, short stories, and she's a poet. Her short story Bush Girl was published in the May 2008 issue of African Writing. She's a graduate of Vassar College in the United States. She's a contributor to the 2019 anthology New Daughters of Africa, which is edited by Margaret Busby, who is just an incredible figure in the publishing, writing, anything world. And I do need to plug a little bit myself because I'm also published in that anthology. It's a beautiful book. It's like, maybe I should show you. I may as well show you. I've got it right here. This is the book. But like, doorstopper. It's an incredible book. I'm not going to go on and on about it because I can. I could go on and on. I could just do this recitation of all the names. And it's really beautiful. All the names are here on the back. I've got an excellent hardback copy. I just need to boast. And yeah, this is not something I will be lending anybody. So that's, okay, that was not intended, but there you go. So let's get back to this. So I want to talk about this book. And this is a book by Nana. It's called Blue. a history of the color as deep as the sea and as wide as the sky. I'm not going to, and I should say as well that the illustrations in this book are exquisite. And it's illustrated by Danielle Minter. I'm not, and should not, of course, read the whole book to you because I want you to buy it wherever you are. Good luck. I mean, I managed to get my copy. I wrote to my local bookstore and I said, can you get this for me? And she said yes, and she got it for me. It's beautiful. I'm going to read it with my kids. But as I say, it's for children of all ages. I wrote to Nana when I don't know her. You know, we're not acquainted as such. I think we know of each other online. But I wrote to her and I said, wow, I love your book. And I have this podcast. And I'd like to talk about your book because it's talking about the history of this color. And it was so evocative for me when I discovered the book and read the book. And she was pleased and said, I can feature it. And I even asked her some questions. So I'll be playing some of that B-roll of her answering the questions I asked her. Unfortunately, she's in the States, so I couldn't bring her in real life. But this is pretty good as an alternative. And I didn't want to read the whole book because I would like, if you like what you're seeing, that you'll go out and buy it and experience the story for yourself. But I wanted to read some of it. And she said, that's perfectly fine. So I will also read some of it. I need to say, I love reading. I love reading, any excuse to read out loud. So I will read out loud at the very end of this episode. But let's hear a little bit from Nana first about the book and her ideas and how she came to be writing this and what it was like.
Hi, Yewande. Okay, so here are the answers to your questions on video. I'm impressed with myself. Okay, so why blue? So what inspired me to write the book Blue is I was actually reading the Bible. I was reading about King Solomon's temple furnishings, and it mentioned that there was a blue curtain in the temple, or a curtain that had blue, red, and purple. And I wondered, why the call out? Why did the color matter? So I remember this, I was just in bed and I just started Googling okay, blue. And it was as simple as that. And you know how when you look up a word in an online dictionary, it will give you instances of where that word has been used before. And in this case, one of the instances was that there was a snail in antiquity that had been harvested for the blue drops that it produced. And I said, what, a snail? I thought that was the craziest thing. I'd never heard anything about that. So I just started, doing some proper research. I came across an amazing book. It's called The Rarest Blue by a couple, Judy and Baruch Sturman. And so I sort of gulped that book down, and it was fascinating. It goes into, much detail about the history of the color blue. And it brought me to remembrance of another book I had already read called Indigo by Catherine McKinley, who's actually a friend of mine. And I reread that book and I was like, oh my gosh, this color it was just giving so much richness, so much wonder and mystery. And it completely changed the way I looked at the color blue. And I couldn't get it out of my mind. And I was like, kids need to know about this. So I started, I wrote a poem really, just sort of in the imaginary voice of an auntie writing to her niece and nephew about the color blue. And I thought to myself, you know what? I think this could be a children's book. I think because we human beings project meaning onto anything and everything that we can. I think absolutely color can be political and has historically been. The color blue, for example, because it was such a rare and a luxury commodity because of its rarity in nature and the expense involved in producing blue paint or blue dye. Only the wealthy could afford it. So in that way, the color blue was very political, and every other color has its own story and its own things that it broadcasts. Another great book, it's called Color, A History of the Natural Palette. And that book, the writer goes into, does a really great job of trying to expose what colors mean in many different cultures. So it was important to me just to kind of figure out, like, how do I represent as many cultures as possible? With Catherine McKinley's book, her book does a wonderful deep dive into indigo and its importance in West African culture, and it was so fascinating, and to get that deep dive. And so I wanted to kind of bring all of these strands together to showcase that. I visit schools and libraries to share the book with young people. And one of the things that I have started doing is dye projects. So one is it's a very simple dye project where you take purple cabbage and you boil it, and you get this deep dark purple water, and if you add baking soda, it turns blue, and if you add vinegar, it turns like a hot pink or a fuchsia. And kids love that. So, and you can actually use that to dye something. I've dyed a t-shirt with it. If you add some sort of mordant, I usually keep it very simple, like salt. It's not a lasting dye. It probably lasts a few washes before you lose the color. But it's a really fun thing to do, and it has sort of opened up a world for me where I am beginning to explore more sophisticated dye techniques and learning more for actually making the dyes. And then I have Exit 14. So I should say that Exit 14, as these things sort of work out, Exit 14 predates blue and this book and my color fascination, but in working and doing Exit 14, we work with a lot of local artisans and just learning about the dye techniques, the generations old dye techniques that they use to create vegetable dyes and whatnot, and learning about that process has been so fascinating. So I kind of had that in the back of my mind as I, as I was learning and researching about blue. All of that knowledge started to kind of come together for me. My favorite piece is one that's actually on the website right now. It's exit14apparel.com. And it is this scarf poncho. I love it so much because it's like this really beautifully tailored poncho with a scarf that's attached. And the scarf is long enough that you can choose to just kind of throw it over your shoulder, or you can actually make a bow of it or do whatever your creativity enables you to do. So I think that's such a cool piece. It's very unique, super stylish, and easy to wear. So that's really one of my favorites. Thank you for reading Blue and for interviewing me about it.
I feel like reading every page, but I can't read every page. So I'm going to read from a bit of the middle of the book. I mean, just to give you a sense, she starts by talking about this kind of infatuation with blue and the way in which you could get blue from iris petals, but it doesn't stay. So she goes down this kind of memory lane of the different ways in which blue was achieved. So very early on, like 4,500 BC, it was the lapis lazuli rocks, and you would crush that, and you would make this paint. But it was expensive, but it would be used to make jewelry, these rocks. Or it would be crushed into a powder that was said to be protective. Or, in 44 BC, Queen Cleopatra VII might have used it for her eyeshadow. It was really expensive, and only the wealthy could buy it. Which is why often I don't know, I wonder if that's why you say royal blue. I'm making it up. Maybe after the recording, I'll go back and check and say if I was right or not. But it's seen as this luxury. Hundreds of years later, the story goes, as people were looking for sources of blue dye, that a Phoenician myth says, and I'm reading from the book now, a Phoenician myth says a dog discovered the color. Finding a snail on the beach, the pup ate it up. The snail turned the dog's tongue purple-blue. And from that moment, a new industry was born. How fascinating. This idea that it came from a snail, and you would have to obviously kill the snail, and you would press the foot and crack the shell and get this. But it was very hard to produce. Again, you could get 2 or so drops from one snail, so you needed all these snails. And again, it was just really, really expensive. In an old Liberian folk tale, blue is explained as a gift that connects God to humans. In Italy, from the 13th century onwards, some artists began reserving blue to paint the robes of Mary, the mother of Jesus. In Indonesia, some say special prayers to ward off evil spirits before they make the dye. And India and Nigeria became powerful centers for making and trading indigo. People used it to make clothing, make makeup, make medicine, and it became so precious, people spent it like money. Another interesting piece of history says in 1865, scientist Adolf von Baeyer began trying, and 40 years later, in 1905, he won the Nobel Prize for creating a chemical blue. We feel blue when we're sad. We feel excited when something happens out of the blue, perhaps because the color was once so rare, a discovery that seemed to appear out of thin air. And blue is still considered extraordinary, as it was once the color of royalty. This could be why around the world, blue ribbons are pinned for first prize. She ends off by saying, maybe because blue has such a complicated history of pain, wealth, invention, and recovery, it's become a symbol of possibility, as vast and deep as the bluest sea, and as wide open and high as the bluest sky. The images in this book are really very beautiful. Here's the image on the last page. Once more, to congratulate Nana Ekua Brew-Hammond for this wonderful piece of work, and the illustrator, Daniel Minter. And I hope the book finds many readers, and I'm certainly a happy owner of this. I'm still, by the way, on the lookout for somebody who could teach me to dye indigo. So I don't know if anyone has any suggestions, preferably in Johannesburg, but yeah, I'm still on the lookout. But I will leave it at that for today. Thank you so much for sitting with me and listening to this book and learning about Nana Ekua Brew-Hammond's creation. I hope it's been interesting and fascinating. I wonder if you like blue as much as I like blue. Maybe you're knitting something blue, as I am, and you want to tell me about it. Feel free to do so. But do take care, and see you again here, hopefully very soon. Ciao.